the Torah says that Hashem told him when he was building the Teva to put in a sohar in the roof, and there are two meanings ascribed to that by Rashi. One is that it was a window, and one was that it was an illuminating stone. And when you and the word sohar is tzadik ches resh, and the when you rearrange those letters, one rearrangement is rotzen, which means Hashem, rotzen, which means Hashem's will, and the other arrangement is tzura, which is pain. So we have this internal dynamic that out of when we experience pain, one needs to get to a level of sophistication, spiritual sophistication, to understand that is, for whatever reason, part of God's rotzen, part of God's will, and because of it, the result is a light source, that you yourself become a light source as a result of that experience. And that's the learning of Parshas Noach, and it's long and it's complicated. But now we go to Parshas LECH-LECHA, and in Parshas LECH-LECHA, the Torah begins to talk about what is the general function of man in the general background of Gashmias, for physicality. And the tragic thing about this is that it's all one's purpose and one's flowering and one's capacity to have a life instead of an existence is all mapped out in this Torah, or particularly in the Chassidus of this Torah. And the tragedy is how few people learn it. And, people are busy with their iPhones and their gadgets and everything else. And one of the things that begins to emerge in this week's Sidra, and this is one of the most important, I don't know how to emphasize this enough, is that there are multiple layers of personal perspective. You can have the perspective that you're driving down the road, some idiot drives out and bumps you, it's bad luck. And you can go a bit deeper and understand that it was Ashkoka Protis and it's Gamza Latoiva, that is also for the good. So maybe it was that if you hadn't got bumped and hadn't got stayed, you'd have had some tragedy happen to you or something, and you can go deeper with that perspective. Ultimately, there's depth and depth and depth to the perspective until it is possible to reach a relationship with your God where all the hiddenness of Hashem almost disappears, certainly for tzaddikim. So, and this concept of these layers of perspective is introduced in this week's Sedra. Let me give you an example before we start. The Sedra begins by Hashem saying to Avram that he should get up and leave his birthplace, leave his home, and go to a place that I'll show you. Now, let's understand this. Hashem is telling Avram Avinu to leave his comfort zone and go somewhere. The first thing to notice is Avram doesn't ask him where, doesn't ask Hashem where, and he doesn't have any real issue with doing what he's told by Hashem. Now, you might think that if Hashem appeared to you and me, we wouldn't have any issue of doing it either. But if you think about that for a moment, Avram is told to go to, ultimately he's told to go to Eretz Canaan, and he goes there, and it's a long, difficult journey, basically by foot, and he gets to Canaan, and what happens? There's a famine there. Now, nowhere in any of the Torah literature do we have a record of Avram Avinu saying to God, I don't get it. You told me to leave home, you told me to leave my comfort zone, you told me to come here, I've come here, it's taken me all this time and all this trouble and what do you reward me with? You reward me with a famine, so that I've got to go to Mitzrayim, I've got to go to Egypt, which is what he does. Give you another example. Hashem tells him to be fruitful and multiply. So he and Sarah have children. He has Yishmael. Yishmael's a Rasha. He doesn't say to Hashem, you told me to have children, you didn't tell me I was going to have a Rasha. Then he's the hero of monotheism, and he is told as a prize for that he's going to be as populous as the stars in the sky and the sand on the beach. And he gives birth to Yitzhak, who's a tzaddik gomer, who's an absolute prince amongst men. And what happens? Hashem tells him he thinks Hashem tells him to shake him, and he has the whole problem with the Akedah. We still say it every morning. And at no point does he say, where is God? Where is this God that told me to do this and told me to do that? So the question is, why didn't he? I mean, common sense would, and many people fold like that. Many people will tell you, for example, that when they take on a horror, a vision of something which is horrific or painful, they blame God. And they say, where was God? Where was God in the Holocaust? Where was God with the victims of these terrorists last week? And the answer is that we don't understand. That's the first point. We don't understand. But we equally have to learn that what comes from the mere fact that something has happened is that it's supposed to have happened, and it is for one's benefit, and that there is a growth path being revealed. That Zohar, the light, is becoming available as a result of that pathway being opened up. Now, it's very difficult to get to that perspective, and I'll tell you now, the process requires constant visits to the spiritual gym. If you want to have a beautiful, muscly body, like some of the ones around this table, then you know very well that you've got to diet and exercise and walk and whatever it is. You want to get a perspective, a spiritual perspective, which gives some real meaning and tweaking to your life and some real purpose to your life. You've got to go to the spiritual gym. The spiritual gym is learning Torah and performing mitzvahs. That's how it's done. And the more Torah that a person learns, the more these vague shadows at another perspective begin to crystallize and begin to become more focused. So l'chaim. So